Welcome to the Business Women Australia podcast show, the podcast that brings together industry leaders to discuss the latest trends, insights and strategies. So sit back and relax. Let's get inspired by the amazing women who are shaping the future of professional women in Australia. Welcome everyone. We've got another episode of the Business Women Australia podcast. I'm your host, I'm Leanne Jeffrey, and today I have one of my favourite talk show people because we've done a good webinar together, and we've got, joining me today is Kyra Galante, who is a very wonderful woman. So welcome, Kyra. Kyra is a proud Goulburn woman from the goldfields of Western Australia. You've got a lot of connections to Noongar country. You've got 20 years of experience delivering Indigenous community engagement. You've done recruiting and mentoring strategies in civil construction and mining. Bachelor of Science in Indigenous Community Management Development at Curtin. And have you graduated for your Masters for Indigenous Business Leadership?
Yes, I have, Leanne.
Yes. So, and you do wear a lot of hats. You do a lot of work, especially in the community, and you've been such a great ambassador for the Voice to Parliament campaign. So thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule for joining me. I do appreciate it. And we'll get straight into it. What do you think?
Sounds like a good plan.
So, there's a lot of topic about this Voice to Parliament, and everybody's starting to really understand that we need to make this really important decision now. And, the biggest thing is, first of all, is like, why do you think we need to actually have a voice in our constitution?
Yeah, look, I think I might just give a bit of background context on how we got to this point around the voice. This started with the Uluru Statement from the Heart that some people may have seen or may be aware of, but may not have read. So it's actually a statement that came about in 2017, where we had representation of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people right around the nation who all came together and thought about what is it that we would need in order to support our people around moving forward in this country, around all those areas where we're more disadvantaged. And so after many days of discussions from everybody who were part of the Uluru Dialogue, they came out with the statement. And it's important to understand that they did go back and review history, and history is a part of how we, got to the area of being more disadvantaged in comparison to our Australian people. And so from that, they realised that our ancestors for more than 4 decades have asked for a voice. So it's not new. Uluru is not new. In the arts, it's been there in history with taking a voice from our people through various petitions to the kings, queens and government of the time since colonisation in this country. And so the difference this time is when they presented Uluru, it's a gift to the Australian people to walk beside us around uniting the country for us, because we do need to do something different this time. So that's why the gift is to the Australian people, not to government. But it's also an invitation to include us, to recognise us in the Constitution, because the Constitution, belongs to the Australian people. So the gift is to the Australian people to actually have a referendum to recognise us in the Constitution. And the Constitution belongs to the Australian people.
Yes. And off top, we haven't talked about this, but Australia is one of the last countries to actually acknowledge their Indigenous population in their constitution, aren't they?
Yeah, so there was also research by many people involved in looking at constitutional recognition across the globe. So they looked at Canada, looked at New Zealand, looked at a few other countries to see what that looked like, and then also the impact for the people. So yes, we are one of the countries that do not have our First Nations people recognised in our constitution at the moment. Yeah. And so I guess going back to your original question, the Uluru Statements is voice, treaty and truth. And so now we're in a pivotal moment of seeking the voice to then move forward in this country, and then treaty and truth telling as a part of that as well.
Yeah. And what do you how do you think that'll all make a difference?
Well, getting us constitutionally enshrined is, first of all, putting us in our rightful place. It's also completing our Australian constitution, because it's incomplete because we're not there as First Nations people. There's also a safety mechanism of getting us constitutionally enshrined and getting the voice to Parliament, because what we do know and have seen historically, that any bodies that are formed to advance Indigenous Australians have been abolished as the new government's come in power. So getting us constitutionally enshrined and getting the voice to Parliament will ensure that it doesn't matter which government comes into power after a 4-year cycle, they can never remove the voice to Parliament, because we know that it will take time to actually see the impact of the results of having the voice to Parliament and improve the equity for our people's lives in our country.
Wow. So, and can you give some examples of how it's going to improve their lives?
Yep. Well, I think it's important for people to understand that it's a voice to Parliament, not the voice in Parliament, because this is where some misinformation is out there, and people are saying, but we already have First Nations people who sit in Parliament. But it's important for people to understand that our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are politicians who are currently in Parliament represent the parties that represent their constituents. So having a voice to Parliament is an independent advisory body that will just make recommendations to Parliament on policies and laws that affect us and affect us only, in how services are being delivered on the ground to just our people. So when we talk about housing, health, education, training, our programs for our women, antenatal, prenatal, because we do have a higher child mortality rate in comparison to Australian women. The services that are being delivered is to make sure that A, we're removing a lot of those barriers, B, that language isn't a barrier for our people to access those services, so making sure that services are delivered in a way that is culturally appropriate and effective. But it's also recognising that we're very diverse in our language, so how you deliver services here in Worley, Perth, will be different to how you deliver it on the ground to people in the country, in the Kimberleys, in the Pilbara, because we're dealing with different diverse languages in that manner. And so it will ensure that we're removing a lot of those barriers for our people access, even just going to a doctor and having input into their healthcare needs for them to be able to, have good health, really. And then for our education, we've got some really great programs in place at the moment. However, with our young people, so we have Stars Foundation, we have Quantaf, we have Curriculum Foundation, great programs. However, we know that a lot of these 4-year cycles because of government. So it's making sure that enough resources and funding there to carry them through to actually have an impact, which is what getting into those policies before they're actually developed and hit the ground around services delivered.
And I think that's one of the things that we haven't quite gotten there. Like, as you talk about the 4 years and the turnaround in the government, is, you know, we've always had a government to bring, you know, First Nations to light, and they've always brought a concept with that, but it's never been ingrained in our constitution. So it can come, it can go, it can waver, but like you're saying, you know, once we start something in our constitution, you know, the next parties actually have to come in and embrace it too. So, you know, we've got to stop that 4-year swinging door happening.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to make proper change. And, you know, and the thing with this is, you know, we're now, because we're having it part of the constitution, and people aren't quite, a lot of, like you've said, it's a voice to Parliament, not a voice in Parliament. And a lot of people are getting a lot of that misinformation out there. You know, they're confusing the two, and you know, they'll sit on one side of the political spectrum. And I think this is one of the reasons why I love the fact that you're so willing, you know, and you've been so willing to talk with BWA to help us to understand. I've learnt a lot, and to help other people understand. So with that, like, what is one of the biggest concerns that you hear people coming to with the Voice to Parliament?
So one of the concerns that we're hearing a lot from people where we engage with them and host events and create that safe space for them to ask questions is there's not enough detail. However, the details will be in legislation, and that's the role of the voices in Parliament. All the politicians will come up with those details, and it will be very transparent to really have input and see how that legislation is formed, the details that go into it. But it's like all policies in this country, that happens for them as well. So the Constitution is just a set of principles. And so the question we're asking the Australian people that will be put to the referendum will be a proposed law to alter the Constitution to recognise the First People of Australia by establishing an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice. Do you approve this proposed alteration? And people just have to write yes or no. That's it. The legislation will have all the details. So just like all of our laws in this country, it goes through legislation, and they're done in Parliament. And that's up to the Parliament to come up with those details.
We've actually got Emma Craven watching us at the moment, and what she's actually said, one of her greatest concerns is that it's creating division.
Yep. So probably to just, thanks for the question, Emma. Great question. To be honest, the division has always been there because we don't have equality and equity for our people in this country. So division is already there. So if you look at a lot of the social indicators like closing the gap report where Indigenous people are more disadvantaged, that is already, this nation is already divided because we don't, as First Nations people, have equality and equity around all those areas. So this is really what this is about, is having the voice to Parliament so that we can have a seat at the table, we can have a voice for those laws and policies that affect us to actually close that Indigenous disadvantage, because, you know, our people are dying at a higher rate and we're the minority group in this country. So it's already divided, and this is what this is about.
Yeah, and she's also made the thing about, you know, getting the additional funding for those who are marginalised, but the referendum's going to cost taxpayers, and she's quoted, so I haven't researched this one, but 364.6 million. So obviously there's going to be kickback whenever there's a referendum. We had it with the marriage equality vote. as well. A referendum always costs money, but obviously to have something in the Constitution, I think, is always a short-term cost when we're looking at a referendum. And, you know, when we talk about the long-term gain of our First Nations people, how do you see that? Because obviously that'll contribute to the economy long-term.
Yep, definitely.
How will it help?
So what it will do, so we're looking at the moment we have a lack of services being delivered on the ground because the policies are not effective. So this is about having effective policies to have effective services that will cost less money long term.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, when we bring up our people as a whole and we have a country as a whole, I think, you know, obviously, you know, we look about the stats of having equality in just even in workplaces.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when it shows that we have a multicultural workplace, when we have gender equality in a workplace, the workplace actually sustains more profit. And of course, more profit turns into more taxes, which turns into more revenue back into the country. And, but one thing in saying that as well, back on track, what do you think, hypothetically, Australia comes together and we're voting yes?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think will be the first thing that people will see as a result of a yes vote?
Look, I think what they will see is they will see the independent body, which will be the voice to Parliament. So made up of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. They will see how effective it will be in the legislations, and then how the legislations then impact on services being delivered. And because Parliament will be very transparent around what that looks like, people will actually see that come to fruition, but they'll also see the positive impacts of it, having Indigenous Australians, where we're improving the quality of their life. We will come through the closing of the gap report, where we'll be able to measure and monitor that easily. That is a public document to any Australian people who want to, research that, closing the gap report. You will start to see the positive impacts of that. We know it will take time, but you'll actually see the programs that will be more effective right across this nation. You will see First Nations people having access to those programs where it actually meet their needs on the ground and improve their life.
And you know, one of the biggest thing is that to me, it's actually quite heart-wrenching that we see, like, especially so many of our First Nations kids, you know, going behind bars because they don't have this support.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, culturally, you need that connection.
Mm-hmm.
And like, one of my things is I believe that, you know, the voice will actually help, because we've got to bring up our younger generation. You know, they're the next ones, you know, helping to rule the country. How do you actually think? So I've kind of thrown this in as a curveball.
No, that's fine.
How do you think, you know, it'll affect those stats and, you know, bringing our young children out of these detention centres?
Yep. So I think I probably want to start by saying the voice will be representatives of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, gender balanced, and include youth, who will be part of that. It will be empowering. It will be community-led, inclusive, respectful, and culturally informed. And it will be accountable and transparent. So the nation will be watching this. So it will be very open and transparent every step of the way around how it will have an impact. For our young people, it's about diversion programs. So programs we can put in place to meet their needs, connecting them with their culture and their identity so that they know who they are, where they come from, they have purpose in their life, and where they're going. It will strengthen their identity to be proud, confident young people. And it will put them on the right track of completing education to then transition into their career path of their choice once they complete their education. Because right now we have too many gaps as to why these things don't happen. But it will also do capacity building with parents, for capacity building with our women, who are the mothers, capacity building with our men, who are the fathers, to build their family units to be strong. And so that these young people feel safe in their homes, in their communities, to then focus on their education, to be empowered, but to not go into the prison system. That's what diversion programs are. It's diverting the young people on a path to be a part of society, to feel strong, but also to have good mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being, because they are our future leaders of this country. So we
absolutely
need to...
Yeah, and and that's the thing, and I think this is why having these conversations are so important. Yeah, because obviously we see it for our generation. The Gen Xers are kind of in the thick of it, but what we need to see is now these new generations coming up and being able to keep our culture, keep this, because bringing in that 60,000 years plus of culture, it needs to be passed on and brought forth, as and I love the fact that even my children benefit from having such a rich culture, to have that forward, and having the voice to Parliament, having our First Nations advocate for our First Nations, for politicians to hear, is, to me, it's so important. And I'm really thankful that I met you by chance, and that you're always willing to come and educate me that little bit further. Emily's also said that she really appreciates you. Emma appreciates you answering her questions as well. So thank you so much for your time. And Lynn's put the magic wand on you before.
Yeah.
Magic wand time comes out. You've got your magic wish. What's your final wish for you to see in this vision?
Look, I'm really excited about the future of our nation. Our young people they're already great leaders. They're going to inherit the outcome of the referendum. And so what that vision would look like for me is that all our young people will embrace our culture. There'll be that beautiful exchange. It's already happening with our young people.
Yeah.
They're born into a world with easy access to information through technology. They already have a social conscience. They know what they want. This is a leg we get to leave behind for them to carry it forward around celebrating the oldest living culture in the world. That's going to make Australia unique to the rest of the world that no one else has, and sharing that together. And that should be the future identity of this country. It should be all Australians coming together. This is what, we've been on a journey of reconciliation. This is what practical reconciliation is. Everybody wants to know what they can do around, how they align with their environmental, social, and governance, how they align with their corporate social responsibilities, how they align with actions of improving the quality of our lives through the United Nations Declarations on the Rights of Indigenous People, or the social development goals, or reconciliation action plans. And this is it. This is what practical reconciliation is. Voting yes, getting us constitutionally enshrined in our own nation to then heal and move forward as a country. History, we can't change history, but we can change the future of this country just by voting yes. and let our children take it from there.
Let's hope we learn from our history and make a beautiful future. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. As always, Kyra, you are amazing. You know, just a voice of reason, usually unlike myself. But no, you always bring so much thought, so much consideration, and you do it in such a loving way. And I really appreciate you today.
No worries. And thank you for the invitation, Leanne, and for the Business Women Australia, but also call to action, people. More information out there. Uluru Statement from the Heart website, Yes 23, Reconciliation Australia. All of those are there.
I'll put all those links attached to these as well. So in about half an hour, people will be able to access them all.
Sounds good.
Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks.